Hi, I'm Darcy, and welcome to our webinar replay. This was a live webinar, but now you can watch it at your leisure. Feel free to skip chapters as you'd like by clicking that icon in the lower right-hand corner. All right, without further ado, I'll hand it on over to Heather May.
Whether you are just starting to establish your brand or business on social media, or you are a seasoned pro, today we're going to chat through ways that you can ensure that each of your channels is set up for success, as well as the types of posts you could be focusing on for each one of those channels. Our hope is that everyone will leave our time together feeling confident about the changes you can make to level up each of your social channels. And in fact, if you have a little bit of extra energy, as I mentioned, feel free to work alongside us. And that way you can potentially leave here today with some positive changes already boosting your brand. Let's start at the beginning. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of everything, let's take a quick peek at a few examples of some well-rounded social media profiles. We have a Facebook account here, a Twitter, a LinkedIn, and an Instagram. What do each of these profiles have in common? What I notice is that each one of them has a really strong sense of who their audience is, and they understand what their audience needs from them. This is really a non-negotiable for every platform. So if you haven't thought about this particular point and really identified who you want to speak to through your social channels, jot that down on your notes. We'll give you just a minute. And if you're watching the playback, feel free to pause the video here and think about that question, or you can come back to it later. And it can be helpful to keep in mind that your audience for each of your channels might be different. So what you share on one of your channels might be a different audience than you might have on another. Each of the major social channels, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram, all have their own unique nuances in terms of the information that you can share with your audience. Your profile and bio are the first thing that people see when they come and visit your channels, so it's important to be intentional about filling out as much as possible. Not to mention, if you're like me, whenever I am looking for a way to reach one of the companies or brands that I need to get in touch with, social channels are often the first place that I look. So key pieces of information that you'll want to be sure are present on all of your channels in your About section include the following. Your business name, this one seems a little obvious, but make sure that if your handle is already taken by another business that has a similar or close name, try to get your username as close to your business name as possible without causing any confusion for customers. An example of this would be there's a company called Rogue Fitness. It's a fitness brand, and they've gone with the handle @RogueFitness because @Rogue was already taken. So just think about that when you're kind of coming up with your little handles. You want to make sure that to include what you do or what you offer so people know when they come to your profile what it is that they're looking at. Your website, this doesn't necessarily have to be a business website. It could be linking to a blog or a store or wherever you're wanting your consumers or your audience to really expand their experience with your brand. An address, if available, this is particularly important if you're a brick and mortar. I know particularly in these COVID times, if I'm needing to check in on a business or if there's somewhere that I'm going, oftentimes I'll head to the social account to find that information. And then business hours. This can apply if you are a brick and mortar store, but it also can apply if you have kind of dedicated hours that you're typically online, or if you have a support team that is online for specific hours. This also sets a really clear expectation as to when people can reach you. And that brings me to my last point. You always want to make sure that there's at least one way that your audience can reach you, whether that's a phone number, an email address, or they can send a message on a specific platform, even text. There's a brand that I interact with that has a text option. I think it's so much fun to just be able to text them and I get a response right back to my phone. That was hard to say. The Missouri University of Science and Technology found that it takes less than 0.2 of a second for someone to form an opinion about your brand when looking at your content online. So make sure that you have all of those details there. And while not everyone will necessarily read your bio, those who do will get a sense of what you do, who you are and perhaps a little bit about what you have to offer. And it's a way to connect your audience to you and entice the ones who resonate with it to keep scrolling to your content. And on that note, let's get to the content. When it comes to content, what is so neat about each of the social channels is that there are different uses for each of the big players out there. Instagram is a great place to really showcase the visual components of your brand, while Facebook offers really awesome opportunities to showcase user reviews and for customers to reach out if they need any kind of support or assistance. And we're going to get into each of the individual channels in just a few, but there are some universal tips that will serve you well no matter which channel you're posting to. As Brent Sartoris from Search Engine Journal shared, with 3.8 billion users, which is actually up to 4 billion as of 2020, social media platforms put you in front of a huge audience. But does your audience love your content? Because it's one thing to be seen by them, it's another to get their wholehearted support. Plus, social media platforms were created for connections, not selling. Here are a few of the tips to keep in mind when posting across all of your channels. Show, don't tell. For this one, I mean images or videos will always perform better than just text. Get creative. While using stock photos are fine from time to time, you'll always be better served by taking your own photos, and particularly with the quality of smartphones and the cameras that are available at your hand all the time, it's really easy to get those images. MarketingExperiments.com tested a real photo of their clients against their top performing stock photo, and they found that visitors who saw the real photo were 35% more likely to sign up. So keep in mind that the image should be directly related to whatever is accompanying it. So you want to make sure that those line up. Make sure that your images are optimized for the channels that you're posting to. Dimensions vary between each of the social channels, and this can be a little bit frustrating and confusing. And I'll be sure to link a resource with a breakdown of all of the current optimal sizes for images across all of the social channels, because as much as we would like for them to stay the same, they do change from time to time. Don't be afraid to recycle content that performs well. We say this quite often and really enjoy kind of encouraging people to do this, and it's something we do often at Buffer. So by tracking your analytics, you can see which posts have done really well, and you can repurpose that later on. And that could even look like turning past information that you shared into a nice infographic or an image with a text overlay. Get creative there. And then share customer testimonials and reviews. It's a really wonderful way to share what you have to offer. And as a consumer, who are you kind of more likely to trust? The salesperson or maybe an honest customer review? And I think it's always a really neat way to grab a screenshot of the customer review, and you can turn it into a really simple graphic. All right. And with that, I'm going to hand it on over to Darcy to kick us off with a closer look at Twitter.
Great. Thank you. Heather May mentioned just how neat it is that each social network really has its own nuances. She also mentioned that we have a lot of information to share with you today. So while this is a lot, keep in mind that it's not everything. We're not going to cover everything. And of course, we don't want to absorb everything all at once. Our intention today is just to give you a general understanding of each platform, along with some actionable tips that you're going to be able to use to improve each of those channels. You're probably not going to be able to make a ton of changes in the call today, just because we're going to be going fairly quickly in efforts to give you as much information as possible. But we do encourage you, if you can, log in as we're working, follow along, so that when you do go in to make changes, you have that familiarity. Now, one more thing to mention is that chances are that unless you have a staff working alongside you, that you're probably not on every single one of these platforms. You might be, but if you're not, that's okay. And actually that is a good thing, because we need to focus, right? When we cover a platform today that you're not currently using, you can just listen, take ideas from that platform, maybe into one of the platforms you do use. You can maybe work on improving a different one of your social channels while we talk about this other one. Or maybe you could just take a quick little cat nap and snooze a little bit. We all need more of that nowadays. Just stick with us throughout. It's going to be a fun journey as we go through. We're going to go through Twitter first, then Facebook, LinkedIn, and finally Instagram. So get that notepad ready for Twitter and get your Twitter profile up if you currently use Twitter as well. Let's get to sprucing some things up here. Now, there's a lot going on around the screen, as you can see right here, when someone views your Twitter profile. On the right here, we can see that Twitter is promoting other like profiles, maybe even competitors. And then on the left, I'm seeing the Twitter navigation menu. The profile that I'm actually looking at, it shows on less than half of the screen, which seems a little mind-boggling to me personally. We need to help our visitors ignore all of those major distractions on the right and the left, and just focus in on our simple but engaging profile. So let's start what's right front and center of our profile, and that's our bio. We have 160 characters to share about our brand within our Twitter profile bio. Unlike some of the other social networks, on Twitter, you don't want to share too much information in this little space. Instead, you're going to want to share a clear value proposition. And that might include these 4 things: target audience, what kind of problems you help solve, outcomes you help people deliver, and then what sets you apart. All of these things give prospective customers a reason to click that follow button because you've just told them exactly what you're going to offer them. And if they're a good fit for your business, they are going to hop on board and click follow. The honesty that you have here in your bio is important because it's to your advantage to accumulate only the followers who are going to engage with and value from your content. I'd venture to say that this is actually true for any social network. The more disparity that you have between the number of followers you have and the number of engagements that you're getting on your posts is ultimately going to hurt your reach. So for example, if Nina has 100 followers and then she gets 10 engagements on a tweet, that gives her a 10% engagement rate. And if her competitor Yosef has 10,000 followers and then he gets 500 engagements on a post, that does sound like he's doing better, but in reality, the end result is that his engagement rate is lower than Nina's. His is 5%, and the algorithms might work more in Nina's favor in that case. So all of that to say that we want to aim for those legitimate targeted followers, and we want the honesty in our bio in order to do that. So let's take a look at a bio here, an actual bio. We're going to jump over to a picture of Elevate Her Vibes Twitter profile. So you can see here that her bio has short, succinct words and phrases. This is kind of like what you might see on an Instagram business profile bio, which we'll look at later. She also adds in some emojis, which really direct my eye where to go. And they also add a little personality. So she's saying, this is my bio. Hey, look over here. This is where I need you. And so that directs me where to go as a visitor to her profile. After glancing quickly at the bio here, I do know what kind of content I would expect from her as well. And in fact, we have Brie Nicole of Elevate Her Vibe. She should be here with us in the webinar. She's also a fellow Buffer customer, just like you are. So if you are watching live with us, feel free to give her a shout out in the chat. Give her some love. And Brie Nicole, if you wanted to share any social media handles so that anyone can connect with you, you can share some tips and tricks that you've learned along the way and maybe cross share and we'll be a tighter community for some of that content sharing. Now, the Twitter bio, it's a necessity and it's a quick way for people to get to know what you're all about. But now let's talk about what people really love Twitter for, and that is the content. For years, Twitter has been a platform that some love and some might not love as much. If you're live with us and you're not talking to Brie Nicole right now, then feel free to share an emoji in the chat about your feelings about Twitter, because some people get really passionate about Twitter. If you're watching the replay, feel free to play along as well. You can use the comments section right below the video and maybe use a sentence so people know what you're referring to. Maybe something like, Twitter makes me feel, insert emoji here. Even though you want to share very concrete information in your short bio, your actual tweets are going to be really where you let your personality shine, your brand personality, and also where you're going to get your full message across. This is a place where you're going to show your real life. You might showcase your humor. It's where you want to be authentic in any way that matches your brand persona. On Twitter, people want to relate with you. They want real, authentic, and maybe even raw content. That's all more shareable than a traditional sales post would be. Now, speaking of shares, one feature that Twitter is really known for is that retweet. You might already be familiar with the fact that this is Twitter's post sharing feature. We want to use that in our content strategy. There are a couple of reasons you would want to retweet someone's content. Maybe you're hoping to get their attention. Maybe you want to follow them and hope they follow you back. Maybe they're in your target market, for instance. And also, maybe you like their content and you think it would be valuable for your audience. When you retweet, you have the choice to make it a quoted retweet or a regular retweet. In a regular retweet, you're basically just doing a mirror image share of what that tweet was onto your feed to your followers. But in quoted retweets, you get to add your own comment above the retweet itself. I wanted to highlight this because this comment is key to showing how genuine you are. It reflects the fact that you don't just have a strategy of clicking retweet over and over to get your feed filled up, but that you have a reason for each and every share. It's a great way to make sure that the account you're retweeting as well, and also your followers, know that you have intention behind all of the content that you share. So it adds that genuine, authentic component. I really could go on and on about Twitter techniques today, but we have a lot to cover. So I'm going to share just one more that is another differentiator for this platform, and that would be engagement. That seems simple, and in theory, it is simple. Well, we want to have a posting strategy on Twitter. And while posting your own content is important, engaging with others is just as important on Twitter. The reason some people love Twitter is because there really is no hierarchy. Sure, some accounts do have that blue verified check mark that people love and admire, but there's no division between personal profiles and brand pages on Twitter like there are on the other social networks. Everyone on Twitter hangs out with everyone else on Twitter. Twitter is the one place where your brand can talk to personal profiles without that awkward feeling of, are you trying to sell to me? Please stop. You can use that to your brand's advantage on Twitter specifically. So these are a few quick tips to find the right people to engage with on Twitter. One thing you can do is you can find an article or another piece of content on the web that you think your target audience is going to resonate with. Take that URL and just pop it into the search bar on Twitter. The results then are going to bring up handles that have posted that link before, and voila, you just found some new friends to start a chat with. You also can attend Twitter chats. Twitter chats, they not only allow for just a ton of information sharing and learning, but they're like hyperspeed networking events. You instantly will find like-minded people to connect with if you're in the right Twitter chats. Third, you can search for posts with hashtags that you think your target audience might use, and then you can engage with those individuals. It's kind of similar to the URL search. And lastly, engage with your followers. Seek them out, even if they aren't engaging with you. Once you start engaging with them, the idea is that they then will be re-engaged with your brand. So what do you think? Think we have enough to bite off here with Twitter? It's just the first platform that we've talked about today. So much great information can go into your strategy. So wrap up your Twitter notes for a second. Put them aside just for a bit. You can return to them later. And let's head on to Facebook. Great. Now, pretty different from Twitter, Facebook offers a lot of options to make your page unique. Take advantage of those options. And I would say a lot of people don't even know about some of these options. We're going to go through a few features that Facebook offers to enhance the look and the feel of your page. First, you can add a call to action button. This is also known as the CTA button. If I use that term CTA, it refers to call to action, something you want people to do. You're going to find this setting by clicking right there on your current CTA button, or it'll say add button if you don't yet have one. Now, if you are logged into Facebook right now, you'll be able to kind of follow along with me and see what I'm talking about. If not, these are pretty simple instructions, and you'll have these afterward as well if you rewatch the video. From there, you're going to click edit button. Facebook offers a number of different CTA buttons, lots of them. These include send message, watch video, book now, start order, shop now, etc. Choose just one option to start with. Don't be afraid to experiment with the different ones just to get a feel for which one draws your visitors in the most. So now on the screen, the last slide that you were just on, Heather May, this shows the tabs that are at the top of your page. These are actually customizable within your page settings. To get there, you're going to click settings. That's on the left-hand side of your page. You might need to scroll down to find it. And then you'll click templates and tabs. So in case you aren't following along in your page right now, this is a look at your tab options. Just really dig into these tabs. Think of each of them as chances to capture your audience. Decide which ones you think are going to be most helpful to your audience. And then from there, turn off the ones that you're not going to use and reorder the tabs into priority order. The priority, that's going to depend on two things. One, what you think your audience wants from your brand, and then two, what you want your visitors to know. So what they want and what you want. Also within the same tab, the same settings area, you're going to see at the top of this GIF, once it resets, it'll show page templates. You can choose a different look for your page depending on your business type. We're not going to look into those now, but just something that you can look into in the future. All right, let's move on over to the About area on your Facebook page. Once we have all that basic information filled out that Heather May went over earlier, we can look at our free form text boxes. In Facebook, you have a brand description, which offers 255 characters. And then just below that in your About area, you have an area for additional information. That's where you have 10,000 characters, quite a lot. You'll find both of these if you scroll down on the left-hand side of your Facebook page again. And instead of clicking on settings like we did last time, you're going to click on edit page info. So you might consider using most of your 255 characters in the description to explain your brand a little bit. It's not a huge amount of space, but it's certainly not required to use every character. Let's take a look at Nike here. You can see their page description just under where it says about there, and their description is simply just do it. Granted, Nike is a brand that's known worldwide, and their slogan is known worldwide as well. For them, using only 11 characters really does tell the story. Maybe not for us as much. Now, stay on that page info area where the description is. And if you scroll all the way down, just above the pricing area, you're going to see the additional information text box. This is where you have that 10,000 characters of space. And there's really no industry standard for this area. It's an area of your About section on Facebook that people are going to go to just learn more about you if they're seeking out more than just your description shares. It's up to you to share anything you'd like to give them a better understanding of your brand. So I'd love for us quickly to do a brainstorm around what we could maybe use this extra About space for. If you think of anything, just share it in the chat or in the comments. If you're watching the replay, it would be in the comments. If you're live, it'll be in the chat. I'm going to start the combo by adding just a few thoughts while you start adding yours into the chat area if you come up with any. So you can list your company values. That's one idea. You can share a mini story about your company that reflects your culture. You can share the history of your company. If you are a larger organization, you can get really serious and you can share the terms of service if you'd like. This is how Kleenex actually does use their space. This is a fairly long block of text that Kleenex has here, and it's actually less than 2,500 characters. It's not even close to the 10,000 characters that they're given it. So just an example for you. And I see that some of you do have a few ideas here, a review of your services, positioning statement. Great, Jim. Thank you. Allison said COVID policies, definitely relevant to the times. And I think we had one more. Oh, Peter said, acknowledged that Nike repeated the slogan for their additional info. Yes, it's a memorable one. That's why. Wonderful. So one last thing about additional information is that only the first 150 characters will show. So if you're hoping that your viewers are going to read on, you want to make those 150 characters really resonate. Let's take a look at a real Facebook page. So if you remember that personal blog that we talked about earlier, and hopefully you met her in the chat, Brie Nicole, Elevate Her Vibe also has a Facebook page, and I'd love to take a look at her description here. Now, the difference between Brie Nicole's Twitter bio and Facebook bio, it shows such a great example of how a brand might vary their bio information to fit what the audience on each different social network needs from them. Unlike on Twitter, where she wrote her bio in those short, succinct words and phrases with those emojis, if you remember, kind of like you might on Instagram, here on Facebook, she wrote her description in short paragraph form. I also see that while her Twitter bio seems to reflect Brie Nicole herself, her Facebook page reflects the brand Elevate Her Vibe. And this tells me that Brie Nicole herself comes out a bit more on Twitter than on Facebook, where Elevate Her Vibe is really the one in the spotlight. Ultimately, it really doesn't matter how you decide to use your different social channels, but the important part is you do want to make it clear to your audience what you plan to offer them on each platform. And that's what I think Brie Nicole does very well here. Right now, we have stay-at-home orders around the world. And even without those, we are becoming a society that really relies on digital means so much more than we have in the past. Think dating, shopping, maybe even grocery shopping, sending cards or gifts, and even hosting parties. Without the long conversations we used to have with other parents at school, with strangers at coffee shops, with friends over dinner, we are losing some of our word of mouth advertising that we need to have. We don't have to let go of that word of mouth, though. We can take it online, and Facebook really is the perfect place for that because it's where you spend time with your friends and your family more than any other social platform, likely. Let's say I enjoy the look of a Luna sneakers post, so I share it on my Facebook profile. From there, all my closest contacts, often real family, real friends who know me well, they trust my recommendations, they also see it, and they at least consider it as a recommendation from a friend. This is word of mouth digital style. Keeping that in mind, I'm going to share two main content tips for Facebook today. The first is to create shareable content. You want to make it shareable. There's no recipe, though, for what makes a post shareable across the board because every brand's audience is different. However, before you post, you're going to want to think, would my ideal follower or my ideal customer feel proud to share this with their closest friends and family? With what you know about them, would their closest friends and family would they feel proud to share this with their closest friends and family? Will it make them look good? And if the answer at the end of the day is yes, the post is likely going to hit the mark because what do we share? We share the things that we think others will value from or that we think will make us look good at the end of the day, right? So quick ideas for shareable content are humor, trivia, etc. You can read through the list. They're pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to hone in on this last one, beautiful or eye-catching content. For this one, you do have a couple of options. You can take some crisp, appealing photos. You can use stock images, or you can even create your own graphics using apps like Canva or Bufferzone Pablo for creating text graphics, and Remix for turning any URL or even any tweet into a graphic. This is part of the Buffer family remixes. So let's take, for example, you had a super successful tweet, or you came across someone else's tweet that really caught your attention. Why not take the success of that tweet and then see if it translates to another social network like Facebook here? you can put your tweet URL or really any other URL into Remix, into the app. It's a mobile app. And within seconds, you're going to have a custom image to repurpose that content. The second content tip here is to have a strategy. Just have a plan. Thinking about your posts just before you send them out can sometimes work in short bursts, but at the end of the year, you might find yourself looking back and thinking, what was I actually measuring here? This concept can apply to all of the social platforms, not just Facebook as well. But especially if you have a number of people who have chosen to follow your page, you're going to want to make sure that you have a plan for them as they continue to watch your posts. What journey is your brand planning to go through over the next year or for the rest of the year? And how should your social media content reflect that for your audience? What type of media should it include? What type of content should it include? Have a plan for that. If you're feeling a little uncertain and you need a way to kind of organize your efforts, Buffer's campaigns feature on our paid plans is a super helpful way to group your posts into categories so that you can measure how each of your initiatives is performing. And then at the end of next year, you're not going to find yourself asking, what was I measuring again? Instead, you're going to be able to say, last year or last quarter, we had a 50% increase in likes and a 10% increase in shares for our behind the scenes content. And we had double the engagement on the launch of our newest product compared to the launch of our last product. You are going to feel more confident about everything, about your results, when you're more organized in your methods, and grouping things into campaigns is really helpful with that. Whew. Okay, so that was a lot. Do you feel like you have enough to work on inside of Facebook now with these tips? This is my question to you. Take your last bits of notes here just so you're ready to create your Facebook strategy this week or next. And now let's pop open LinkedIn, and I'll pass it on over to Heather May.
All right. Hey, everyone. We are going to be focusing on LinkedIn business pages today. So not those personal profiles, which are also very helpful. We're going to focus on the business pages today because that's where we get the most analytics from. And I will start by saying, if you don't already have a LinkedIn business page, it is worth creating one. LinkedIn is a really great place to showcase your company's professional accomplishments, show off your company's values, and even build community. And as one of the channels that many businesses don't often put a whole lot of focus on, if you're creative and thoughtful and purposeful in crafting this really key piece of brand real estate, you can easily outshine a lot of the larger companies and competitors on LinkedIn. So don't sell this one short. Just as Darcy shared earlier, you'll want to be sure that you complete as much information on your LinkedIn page as possible. In fact, LinkedIn reports that completing your page gets 30% more traffic. And so take the time, don't skip any of the fields if you can help it. And we're going to talk about a few of the key details that you'll want to be sure to include on your LinkedIn business page. Starting from the top with the header area. So in that header area, there's going to be two sections. There's going to be the tagline area and the call to action, similar to Facebook, where you can add a button. Aside from listing your company's name in the section, you also have the option to put that tagline there. And that tagline is going to allow you 120 characters and is a really great place to either share exactly that, a tagline similar to Nike's Just Do It, or you can share a concise mission statement there, which is also what a lot of brands use it for. This is a really neat opportunity to get creative, and you can even get playful here because this is your first chance to really draw your audience in. And if you have a hashtag that you consistently use across your social channels or for your brand, you can consider adding that hashtag there as well for some added visibility. That call to action button, very similar to Facebook, you have a few different options here. So you have the contact us, you can learn more, register, sign up, visit website, etc. And what I love about the buttons is that you can update them from time to time. For instance, if you have an event coming up and maybe you might want to swap out contact us for register, and then you can link them to a place where they can register for the event. Or if you're already utilizing a button on your LinkedIn page, make a point to at least once a year, maybe circle back and revisit if that option really is relevant and what you're trying to accomplish. And as Darcy mentioned, don't be afraid to experiment. You can switch it up and try out different options and really find whatever's working best for your audience. So what works on Facebook might not be the same thing that works on LinkedIn. You'll see here on Recess, this is an awesome product. On their LinkedIn area, you'll see that they have their tagline, which is an antidote to modern times. This is something they use across most all of their social channels. Sometimes it's a little bit longer. Sometimes they throw an emoji in there. But they also share their handle, which is Take a Recess. And this is the same handle that they use across all of their social channels. I think it's really smart. All right. Aside from that tagline and call to action button in that header area, you're also going to want to make sure that you add in your logo and a really clear brand related header image. And when I say brand related, this can be an image that falls within your brand's color scheme. It can be a photo that kind of evokes the same type of feeling that you're wanting. And you will want to make sure that you hop over and confirm that you have the optimal dimensions for that. So logo images will want to be 300 by 300 pixels, and those optimal cover image photos should be 1128 by 191. LinkedIn has some very odd dimensions, and they change them more than we see other channels do. So in that resource that we'll share after when you get the email tomorrow, there will be a link in there that will kind of break down all the dimensions for the different types of images. All right, let's look at a couple other images on the types of header images that you can use. So Proven Skincare chooses a really clear picture of their product, and so it's very brand, like on point with their brand. It tells you what they're selling, and then they also have a nice little tagline that they have: skincare that's all about you. Makes you feel warm and fuzzy. And then their logo, which is just really clean and not too busy, so it's really easy to identify. Another one, Huckberry. I really enjoy theirs because this image is a little bit different. So their cover image is of this forest, and this brand is really focused on the adventurer at heart, and they sell products for adventurers, and that includes backpacks and all kinds of outdoor gear and things like that. And I really like that this image, not only is it a tree like their logo, but it also kind of invites that feeling of mystery and adventure. All right. Next up, we're going to look at where you complete all of the details for your company overview, which includes all the required pieces of information such as website, industry, company type, and company size. And the part that I really like about this area is going to be the description, and this is your About section. You have 2,000 characters to use, and this is where you tell your audience all about who you are. You may want to answer questions such as, what product or service does your company offer? What makes you different from the competition? And why should they follow you? I mean, everyone kind of wants to know what's in it for me. Like, what am I going to get if I follow your page? You could also share your mission here, your vision, story, or goals. And you can also expect and what users can expect by following your page. You're going to want to keep things short and sweet and as to the point as possible. This isn't the popular TV game show, The Price is Right. There's no competition to see how close you can get to 2,000 characters without going over. Just short and simple, and make sure it's really direct and clear. Google results, this is a really big one. Google results pull in the first 150 characters of your page's text in this area. So making sure that your description is SEO friendly, including keywords and leading with really relevant terms and phrases that describe your organization, are going to be really optimal. And then associated hashtags. This is something really neat that LinkedIn does, and you can associate up to 3 hashtags with your business page. And that makes your page not only more searchable, but it also helps the community find you and other people like within that industry. Let's take a peek at a couple of LinkedIn About sections that really take advantage of those first 156 characters. So Parachute uses their About section, says, Parachute makes premium quality home essentials to enhance your life. We believe that high quality, smart design, and personal comfort shouldn't cost a fortune. That's in their 156, the first characters. There's more there, but those specific words, premium quality home essentials, enhance, high quality, personal comfort, those are all really great keywords that people are going to search for. And so if someone types that in, there's a high likelihood that Google SEO is going to end up pulling that in. This other example, Focus Brands, they're actually a Buffer customer as well, and they have a really fantastic about area. And leave it to the marketing agency to really knock it out of the park with keywords and phrases. They include on demand, marketing team, ready for you, B2B and B2C, ideas, design, execution, boost up, launch, fresh ideas, get it done, and on demand again. I mean, these are really powerful words and phrases that people kind of, it evokes a strong feeling of they know what they're doing, and it's a great opportunity for them to really invite people in. Let's hop into content tips for LinkedIn. LinkedIn consistency is key. We know this across all social channels. However, LinkedIn really does want that consistency. That means optimally 2 to 3 times a week. You don't necessarily want to be posting every day though. So LinkedIn sees a 2 times lift in engagement if it's consistent. If you're using Buffer to create all of your content and schedule your posts, this is super easy. Then you can hop in there, make sure that LinkedIn is getting their equal love. When you're creating posts for your other channels, make sure that you click that LinkedIn. And maybe it's not the one that you always think about, but a couple times a week, and when you're scheduling that content, make sure you pop over there and select LinkedIn. And when you are customizing for each channel for LinkedIn, you can add in some hashtags. So add in those additional little keywords that might bring other people in to see your content. Include rich media. When it comes to types of content to share, it's almost always to share an image or a video or other rich media in your post. And if you can, images generally see a 2 times higher comment rate, and videos a 5 times more likely to spark a conversation than any other type of content shared on LinkedIn. So some nice little facts there for you. Posts with quotes and stats also tend to perform really well on LinkedIn. You could consider pairing a video with text overlay or quotes or stats. And if you don't already have a tool to use to create those images, you could use what Darcy mentioned earlier. We have Pablo, and also Canva is a really great free tool that you can use as well. And if you do decide to give this a try, keep in mind that you want to include relevant info on the imagery. There's no need to repeat that information in the caption, so don't make it too redundant. You also want to keep the copy in your updates really concise and to the point. Bite-sized, digestible pieces of information perform well on LinkedIn. Use those relevant hashtags, as we've chatted a little bit about. This is a really important piece on LinkedIn because their algorithm really uses those to kind of feed information and feed posts to other people. If you've ever noticed kind of scrolling through your feed, oftentimes you'll come across content that is from someone that is a second or third degree connection, not even someone that you're directly connected to, and their algorithm really favors engagement. And so it's often when you have hashtags that are relevant to you and things like that, that information will come up. And then don't be afraid to use emojis. I know that LinkedIn often gets this kind of rap for being really kind of business oriented and things like that, but LinkedIn actually encourages it. They actually encourage the use of emojis to kind of lighten things up. And they did offer the caveat that it's a little bit like salt. So a little bit goes a long way. Don't overdo it, but they are free to use. So don't steer away from them. And then use your analytics to identify specific posts that perform well. And as with all of your social channels, you can use your analytics and should use those to inform and drive your strategy. And you may have seen our announcement last month that we are making it even easier for you to stay on top of all of your metrics with Buffer's analytics solution, Analyze. And it's time to close the book on LinkedIn for now and walk into our last little mini workshop of today inside of Instagram. And I know a lot of you are really excited about this. I'll go ahead and hand it back over to Darcy.
Whether you have been an Instagram user for a long while or if you've just started getting accustomed to it, it's likely that you've observed that Instagram has a lot going on within it. So let's take a look at some of that. They have all these things around Instagram. The list goes on, and not to mention, Instagram does sometimes change their layout on us. They recently did this so that they could encourage more attention to Reels. If you notice, the bottom center is now a Reels feed, and that's their newest content publishing feature. So they really want to focus in on that. It's really easy to become overwhelmed when thinking about your Instagram strategy, but we saw over 70% of you are interested in Instagram and use Instagram. So today, let's focus in on some of the aspects that are going to help you get your Instagram profile set up for success. Once that's all set, then you can have confidence to go deeper into understanding all of those features and nuances. To catch a quick glance at the look of an Instagram profile, let's just take a look at Janie of Canada's Instagram business profile. What are some things we notice here? One, her bio, it's clear and concise. I know it goes pretty fast in this GIF, so if you can catch it. She also has a call to action around reaching out to her to chat or to see past video content that she shared. Her bio tells us instantly what she does and how to contact her. And it's easy on the eyes because the profile here, it's color coordinated. The top of her grid is just a little different. It has a little different feel from the bottom. And this could be due to a slight strategy change. I don't know. I'm just pointing this out because I wanted to mention that it's okay to have a strategy change on Instagram. It's okay to not have the perfect grid. We do want to think about our audience and what would be appealing to them, but we don't want to procrastinate on posting just due to the nervousness that comes from wanting to appear flawless. None of us are flawless, and transparency around that can be refreshing. I do have a quick caveat on the look of your business profile. If you want to know what your Instagram grid will look like when all of your queued posts publish, so all of those scheduled posts, you can do that by using the Shop Grid feature within your Buffer Premium plan or higher. The main use for Shop Grid is that it allows you to associate a link with each one of your Instagram posts. You then add your Shop Grid link into your Instagram bio so that your followers can click over to it and see all of your clickable Instagram posts right there. This is the best way to make your one Instagram link stretch really far because Shop Grid, it mirrors your Instagram feed. And because it does that, it displays the posts that are scheduled in your queue as well. With all of the posts that are scheduled in your queue, plus the posts that have already been published, you can see what your grid is going to look like once all of your posts are out there on your grid. And you can move things around if you need to. Now, one thing to note is that you won't see your Reels in that grid. So if you do periodically publish Reels to your feed, you're going to want to mentally take those into account when you're looking at the grid. Let's slide right now into chatting about your Instagram bio. So we looked at that with Janie of Canada a little bit. Now let's look at it for our context, within our context. You might find some similarities here. I mentioned before when we were talking about Twitter. Twitter and Instagram have similar concepts around bio. In Instagram, you have 150 characters where you can let visitors know why they should follow you. So an Instagram bio is less like that robust about page and more like a bullet pointed list. And you can use bullet points if you want. You don't have to. In your bio, you're going to want to share exactly what type of content that people are going to get from you if they click follow. You're going to want to make it clear what you do, and you also want to give them a straightforward call to action. These are similar concepts to all of the other social networks that we've talked about as well. Now, for visual appeal, using line breaks is a must in the Instagram bio. And of course, emojis, they're always a nice touch on Instagram as well. Struct Club not only has a really appealing and consistent color scheme on their Instagram business profile, but they also make it really clear what they do, who they are, and what they want you to do. Also, as you scroll through, you can see that they have a really solid mix of images with text and images without text. it makes me want to continue scrolling through and just start clicking around their grid to see what's going on in each of those images. Alex from Struct Club, along with Struct Club's CEO, Amara Polak, actually happened to be here as well. They're Buffer customers just like you are. Give them a shout out in the chat. Give them some love about how their Instagram profile looks here. And Alex, if you wouldn't mind sharing any contact info for all of our friends here, I'm sure everyone would love to swap some Instagram tips with you. Now, on the last leg of our workshopping journey here today, let's chat about Instagram content. We could talk for a really, really long time about Instagram strategy, but with that limited time that we have, let's go into answering some common captioning questions. Overall, I'm sure it's no surprise to you when I say that on Instagram, we're looking for visually appealing media, be it photos of scenery or people, be it graphic images or video clips of anything under the sun. This is what makes for a really eye-catching grid. However, I also encourage you to think beyond the grid, as once someone is a follower, it's possible that they're rarely going to visit your grid, actually. We do, however, want them to visit our profile, to our grid, because our shop grid link is there, and that link holds the key to all of the content that you want to share with them. Because of that, we need to aim to provide thumb-stopping content in the feed. We cannot sacrifice interest, entertainment, and value for appealing images. We want to have a mixture of both. If they stop on a post that catches their eye, they're likely going to read the beginning of your caption. And if they're enticed by that, they're going to click on the more button that's going to allow them to see the whole caption. And from there, they're going to read it, and it's going to point to your ShopGrid link in your bio, likely, if you write that inside your caption. And that then is going to take them to ShopGrid, which is that portal with all of the information you want to share with them in and outside of Instagram. So from here, what do we need to do? We need to figure out how to get them from their feed with all of the content from all of the accounts they follow and into your grid where your ShopGrid link and all of the other posts that you have live. So let's go on to those captioning questions just to dig into that a little more. Should my caption be long or short? Whether it's long or short, it really doesn't matter as much as whether you're providing value. Just like Heather May was just talking about with LinkedIn. Just make it as long as you need to provide the value that you believe your audience needs from you. Never longer than that. That's enough. You're also going to want to make sure that your caption's headline is enticing. This is the first 125 characters of your caption. It's almost 2 full lines, but not quite. This is how much your follower can see when they scroll through the feed. Your goal is to have them click more so that they can see your whole caption. Actually, I think it says read. You want them to see the whole caption. And this is especially important when you think of the fact that your call to action is normally toward the end of your post. Speaking of which, you can mix things up now and again and pull your CTA into your headline. For example, you can start with, can you lend some advice? Or visiting my bio link will bring you a special treat today. So you can mix it up just a little bit. And then what is considered enticing when it comes to those first 125 characters is definitely subjective. Emojis always help. Don't hesitate to use those. They're eye-catching. But there are a couple other things we can do as well. We can ask questions. Everyone loves to share opinions. We can also share assertive or thought-provoking statements like, no one can take away your fire, not even Santa Claus. If someone wrote that, you might be like, oh, okay, let's see what they're talking about here. And lastly, share teasers of what they might get if they do click read or more. Like, productivity is a myth, and I have proof. They're going to want to see more what you have to say. All right, that last piece, how should I format my caption? Don't be afraid to use emojis and line breaks. In fact, definitely do so. Your Buffer dashboard has an emoji picker that's built right into the composer, and the line breaks that you use in your composer in Buffer, they're going to be carried over from your post into Instagram if you're using direct scheduling. If you've ever experienced the pain of losing your line breaks on Instagram, you are going to appreciate this. It's not going to be one big jumble. Also, hashtags. You can line break until your hashtags are several lines below your caption. You know how people do that. They might use like 5 dots and then they put all the hashtags down there in their caption so that they're partially hidden from view. Or you can schedule your hashtags into your first comment, and you can do that right in your Buffer dashboard with that first comment feature. With this feature, you're able to schedule all of your hashtags in the first comment at the same time that you schedule your caption. So when it comes time for you to post, for the post to actually publish, that is, the first comment publishes at the very same time. And that is really efficient. You don't have to go back and add that in like many of us have done in the past. Ooh, okay, so what do you think? Do you think we have enough tips to take forward into action today? Judging by what you've said in the chat, I think so. We do want to acknowledge that this is a lot of information. We went fairly quickly so that we could give you as much as we could. And because of that, not only are you going to have access to this recording after the fact, but we're also going to email everyone who registered for this webinar some extra resources so that you can use those as you go forward and think more about how you want to tweak things in your profiles or even start anew. If you're watching the replay, you can click in the upper right-hand corner of your screen to access our resources as well. Now, speaking of webinar replays, if you enjoyed the content today, you might also enjoy our other webinars. You can find all of our replays over at buffer.com/webinars. And lastly, before Heather May reads our first question, and I know Juliet has gotten to many of our questions, so thank you so much because we're right at the hour mark here. We're willing to go over just a bit if anyone wanted to stay to have a few questions answered. But feel free to move on if you need to move on with your day. You will receive the recording. So if there are any specific social channels that you would like us to do a full webinar session on, we'd love for you. Once you click out of this webinar, you're going to see a survey. If you can add that into the survey, there's a question specifically for that. Let us know which platforms you would like to dig even deeper in, and we can have a whole webinar for that particular social account or social network. All right, let's open it up for questions. Heather May, do you happen to see any questions that are left in here for us? I know Juliet has been doing hard work.
Yes, she has. Juliet, I have a question from Miss Me. How important is it to have images with a consistent color theme on Instagram? It's a great question. I often will encourage people to have in mind at least kind of your brand and your colors and things like that. I think having a consistent theme, whether that's a color scheme or it's a specific format of your grid, I think can be really helpful. So it's not an essential that you have a consistent color theme, but I do think that having something that ties your brand together makes it really enticing. And I know that at least for me personally, those are the accounts that I go straight to their feed. They're the ones that I search for and go back to their feed because it's very aesthetically pleasing. So it's not a requirement, but I think that it can be very helpful to keep people coming back for more. Great question.
Great. I see from Kelly here, if your time is limited, are Insta and Facebook stories worth it? Kelly, that's such an interesting question. What is especially interesting about it is that with Instagram, as we just talked about, Reels is kind of the hot new feature. And whenever Instagram pushes out a new feature like that, they laser focus on it. As you can see, they changed the whole layout of your profile so that Reels is front and center for you. In fact, you go to like start a post, and instead of the post, you end up in a Reels feed and you're thinking, how did that change? Well, they moved that there because they want you to focus on it. They want more traffic going to the Reels. And when there's more traffic going to Reels or any place, there has to be a give and take. So some of that traffic is coming out of stories views from what I understand. So I don't have hard and fast stats, but these are things that I've heard throughout the industry that not that stories aren't worth it. There's a place for stories, and Reels and stories are different. Stories, as you know, they go away within 24 hours. You see a lot more raw footage in stories, some produced footage depending on the brand or the different accounts that you're looking at. But it is more time relevant. You're giving a snapshot. You're showing your personality. Reels does tend to be a little bit more of a show. It's entertainment. I'm going there when I want some energy, when I want to see kind of new fun things, maybe a little bit of learning, but not as much, right? So they are a little bit different. And going back to your question, are Instagram and Facebook stories worth it? If you are limited on time, you're really strapped and something's got to give, I think you're okay for a little bit. It doesn't have to be consistent in the stories. I would say Facebook or Instagram is going to reward you for using their newest feature. So if you have to give and take your energy, let's put it towards the newest feature for now. Let's not forget about stories though, because it is an important way for people to connect with you as a brand kind of behind the scenes. Hopefully that helps, Kelly. Feel free to email us if anything else comes to mind and you want to chat more.
Just to piggyback on what Darcy shared there, with Instagram stories, if you are strapped on time, if you block out some time and you want to create some stories that people can watch back later, it is awesome to be able to create those stories, maybe a set, and then save them as highlights. And then if you do that first image, then you can have that branded image as your first image for the highlight. And then even if you're not able to consistently do it, you have stuff at the top, and then those will continue to produce engagement for you. So another idea to keep in mind there. Question, let's see. Do you see a difference in impact reach between putting hashtags in the caption versus hashtags in the first comment versus both? I probably wouldn't go with both. You don't want to be too redundant with the information. I think that one of the biggest benefits is putting the hashtag in the comment is to keep that caption really clean, especially if there's a call to action there, then you're going to want people to be able to see that versus any distraction with the hashtags. So I think that at least from that benefit, I think that's probably better. Darcy, do you have other thoughts on that one?
No, I think that covers it.
All right. We had a question from Elena, and I'll just mention real quickly. She asked, she's been trying to change her Facebook name for a while. Elena, if you would be willing to send us an email to onboarding@buffer.com, I'd love to chat through kind of what you might be seeing and experiencing and see if there's any other additional information that we could share. But that would be onboarding@buffer.com. And anyone, if you have questions, you can always email us there as well.
Andrew asked how you manage campaigns on Buffer. And within Buffer, there is a campaigns management feature within your profile. And if you are pro plan or higher, so any paid plan, and within Buffer then, when you're creating your post, when you're composing, you can assign a campaign to it. So you might have different campaigns that you're running. And the word campaign can be maybe jargony at some point. So just think of it as segments of content or any segment that you want to measure. So I gave an example earlier of behind the scenes content. That's what it was. So maybe I have a campaign for behind the scenes content, more raw content. And I might have another campaign for promotions. And I might have another campaign for customer highlights or testimonials. And let's say those are the three things that I want to manage and kind of judge against each other. What are my followers interested in most? I'm going to make sure that each time I'm creating a post, I put it within one of those campaigns. And then at the end of the quarter or the month or the year, I can then look in my analytics, look up each of those different campaigns and see how they fared against each other. And that's how, in general, you would use the campaigns feature. Feel free to dig in there. I will find the URL to the support article, and I'll put that in the chat for you as well.
All right, I think we'll probably take one or two more questions. We don't want to stay on for too long, be respectful of everyone's time. We have a question from Zach. I manage six different brands from the parent company perspective. Within LinkedIn, how can I maximize the use of LinkedIn when creating affiliate business pages? Should you share content both on the parent and brand business pages? I think that there's a few different ways you can approach this. So I think when you're thinking about the parent company, that is often kind of the bigger umbrella one. And I think with content there, you're going to want to share things from a very high level. And then on the smaller kind of affiliate business pages that are connected to that, then you're going to want to share content that's related to that specific, whether it's a location or if it handles a certain sector of customers, you're going to want to make sure that the content is targeted for those. That doesn't mean that what you share on the main parent page can't be shared on those smaller ones. I would say that it's probably better to keep the content on the affiliate pages related directly to those specific customers that you're wanting to reach, whether that's regional or specific segments or industries.
Great.
All these great questions.
Yes, we have a couple of questions, I guess, about boosting followers, getting more followers, attracting more people to your pages or your accounts. A lot of what we talked about today is going to help with some of that. What it will do is when someone does get to your page, once they get there, they're going to be able to see very quickly, will this resonate with me? Do I want to follow them? Is it going to be valuable? If they don't want to, great. Let them pass you on by, because we want those people who are going to be interested in our content. Other than that, thinking about with some platforms engaging in other areas. So Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, definitely Twitter. We talked about multiple ways to engage there. Going around doing that engagement, making sure you're doing that work to make sure that people know what you're all about and what you want to offer them and what kind of content that you specialize in. And those are some ways that are going to allow people to see you. One other kind of big one would be ads, right? So all of the platforms, they have an ads function and they want you to use it. And especially someone mentioned LinkedIn pages and how to get people there because they're getting them on their profile, but they're not getting them on the business page. One thing that with business pages on LinkedIn and same thing with Facebook and some other platforms, we are seeing that sometimes it does require some ads, and that is kind of how the algorithm can be set up. There are other ways to kind of configure things where you can get your name out there, encouraging shares. So creating that shareable content. So your followers are sharing your content, then it has further reach. If there's more and more shares, you're getting your name out to other people. So that's another way to do it, creating that word of mouth, that buzz. And so some of that's good news, content, creativity, and some of it's just a nature of the platform that it's a business. And sometimes ads are really going to help you, even just starting with boosted posts, something small, feel it out, see how that works for you, get a feel for it. And then you can look into creating a bigger strategy around ads in the future if that makes sense for you. But definitely don't throw away. There's still a lot of good organic reach out there when you look at content quality. So feel free, again, to email us at hello@buffer.com if you wanted to chat any more about strategy along the way, or if you had specific questions about your own profiles or pages.
For that customer specifically, I believe her name was Eves, that asked about getting people from your personal LinkedIn over to your business LinkedIn. There's a fantastic podcast episode that's on the Social Media Marketing Podcast. It's episode number 403. I'm going to drop the link in the chat area. I would highly recommend it. It specifically talks about the differences in how the algorithm works with both of those and some other additional tips on how you can boost that. So I'll share that in the chat area for you. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. We are so thankful that you spent this time with us, and I appreciate everyone hanging out a little bit longer for all of your thoughtful questions. If you're watching with us live, then you'll receive an email tomorrow with a link to the recording as well as those additional resources. Feel free to share that with anyone that you would like. And until next year, we are wishing you all a safe, healthy, and joyous holiday season, and we will catch you in the new year, everyone. All right. Yes. Bye.
Bye, everyone.